Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Vaibhav Jyotsna Srivastav, and with me is Renuka, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. The headlines. India and China review situation along the line of actual control in western sector of border areas. Agree for next round of senior commanders meet. Vice President Venkaiah Naidu meets Gabon President Ali Bongo Ondimba in Libreville. Says India is committed to be a reliable partner of Gabon in its development journey. World No Tobacco Day is being observed on the 31st of May to raise awareness about damage caused by consuming tobacco. Indian women's shooting team bags gold medal in 10-meter air rifle event at ISSF World Cup 2022 in Baku. In French Open tennis, American teenager Coco Gauff and Italy's Martina Trevisan enter women's singles semi-final, defending champion Novak Djokovic to take on Rafael Nadal in men's singles quarterfinal in a few hours. The 24th meeting of the Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination on India-China Border Affairs, WMCC, was held on Tuesday. The Indian delegation was led by Additional Secretary East Asia from the Ministry of External Affairs. The Director General of the Boundary and Oceanic Department of the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs led the Chinese delegation. The Ministry of External Affairs said the two sides reviewed the situation along the line of actual control, LAC, in the western sector of the India-China border areas. The recall that since the last meeting of WMCC in November last year, both the sides have held the 14th and 15th meetings of the senior commanders in January and March of this year. The Foreign Minister of China, Wang Yi, had also visited India in March this year and held discussions with the External Affairs Minister and the National Security Advisor. The Ministry of External Affairs said the two sides exchanged views on the current situation along the LAC in the western sector and eastern Ladakh. They agreed that, as instructed by the two foreign ministers, both sides should continue discussions through diplomatic and military channels to resolve the remaining issues along the LAC. They agreed to hold the 16th round of the senior commanders meeting at an early date to achieve the objective of complete disengagement from all friction points along the LAC in the western sector.
The 118th meeting of the Permanent Indus Commission, PIC, comprising of Indus Commissioners of India and Pakistan, was held in New Delhi. Ministry of External Affairs said the meeting was held in a cordial manner. The Commission appreciated the commitment of the two sides to interact frequently and resolve issues through bilateral discussions under the Indus Water Treaty. It was agreed to hold the next meeting of the PIC in Pakistan on mutually convenient dates. During the two-day meeting, the Indian delegation was led by the Indian Commissioner for Indus Waters, A.K. Paul, and the visiting Pakistan delegation was led by Pakistan Commissioner for Indus Water, Syed Muhammad Meher Ali Shah. During the meeting, annual report of the PIC was finalized and signed. Vice President Venkaiah Naidu met Gabon President Ali Bongo Ondimba in Libreville on Tuesday. The Vice President's office tweeted that during the meeting, Mr. Naidu said that India attaches great importance to its relations with Gabon and reiterated the commitment of the government of India to be Gabon's reliable partner in its development journey. The Vice President also held delegation-level talks with Prime Minister of Gabon, Rose Christian Osuka Raponda. Earlier, Mr. Naidu met the Central African country's Foreign Affairs Minister, Michael Moso Adamu. In a tweet, the Ministry of External Affairs spokesman Narendra Modi said that the Foreign Minister of Gabon called on Mr. Naidu. Vice President Naidu reached Libreville last night in the first leg of his three-nation tour to Gabon, Senegal and Qatar. The visit aims to re-energize the Indian-Gabon partnership. During this visit, Mr. Naidu will also interact with the business community in Gabon and address the Indian diaspora. Mr. Naidu is accompanied by a high-level delegation, including Minister of State for Health and Family Welfare, Dr. Bharti Pawar, and 3 members of Parliament, Sushil Kumar Modi, Vijay Pal Singh Tomar, and P. Ravindranath.
The World No Tobacco Day is being observed across the globe today. This day is celebrated on the 31st of May every year to inform the public on the dangers of using tobacco and the unfair business practices of tobacco companies. Tobacco kills overnight over 8 million people every year and destroys the environment. The theme this year is Protect the Environment. Today in our Hotspot segment, we have our health editor, Dr. Atul K. Tiwari, in conversation with the President of Public Health Foundation of India, Dr. K. Srinath Reddy, on tobacco hazards.
Hello, Namaskar and welcome. Today we are going to talk about the World No Tobacco Day. Every year, World No Tobacco Day is celebrated across the globe as a mark of the global attention towards the tobacco epidemic and its health consequences. This day has been observed since 1987 by the member states of the World Health Organization to raise awareness about the harms caused by tobacco products to people, public health community and the environment. This year, the theme is Protect the Environment. To discuss more about it, the implications and its impact on the health and the community and the society, we have with us the President of Public Health Foundation of India, Gurugram, Dr. K. Srinath Reddy. Welcome to the show, sir.
Glad to be with you on this show and greetings to the listeners.
Listener, tobacco epidemic has really reached an alarming proportions, and the experts and the global community is raising an alarm bell as to how this damage from tobacco can be controlled, and especially its impact onto the environment. So, for the benefit of our listeners, sir, can you tell us what are the health consequences of tobacco use?
Tobacco is one of the major killers in the world. It actually kills about 7 million plus people across the whole world. And in India too, we have about 1.2 million people dying from smoking, both active and passive smoking, and about 230,000 people dying from oral tobacco consumption. And that adds up to about 1.5 million deaths. And while smoking is coming under some control, oral tobacco consumption is still very high in India, and the contribution of deaths and disability to that is likely to rise even more. And apart from that, tobacco causes a huge amount of disability due to multiple diseases which affect very many organs of the body. We know that lungs are affected, and lung cancer is very prominently displayed as an important disease resulting from tobacco consumption. But there are many other problems too. Even among cancers, there are several parts of the body which have this cancer, including the cancer of the mouth, the throat, the windpipe, and also the pancreas, the urinary bladder, and other cancers too. In addition to cancers, we know that the lungs are affected with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, in which there is bronchitis and emphysema, and the lung function decreases substantially, and people who are chronic smokers are frequently left gasping for breath, hooked to an oxygen cylinder in their beds. More than that, we also know that heart diseases are extremely common, and in fact, they are the number one killer due to tobacco-related diseases. There are more than 25 and possibly even 30 diseases which are directly linked to tobacco, and heart attacks and strokes are amongst the major forms of tobacco-related diseases which cause death and disability.
So, what we see that tobacco has emerged as a major factor for the death and the disability in the community and the society at large. You spoke about the implications of smokers who use cigarettes. Then we learnt about the hazards in the form of the usage of oral tobacco. What have been the reasons for the prevalence of tobacco use in such forms, and in what ways it can be curtailed?
Tobacco is one of the most addictive substances in the world because of the content of nicotine. Tobacco is also very aggressively marketed, and there have been in the past many attempts to promote tobacco as something that gives relaxation, pleasure, increases concentration, reduces stress, and makes you attractive to other people. Each one of those claims by the tobacco industry is absolutely false. However, when people are attracted to tobacco to try and experiment with tobacco, either because of these false claims or because of peer pressure by some friends also inviting them to smoke or to chew tobacco, then the nicotine content in the tobacco, which is very addictive, traps them into the habit, and it becomes very difficult for people to escape that addiction. And they become habituated to it, and they continue, and they pay a price for that. So it is a marketed malady and an advertised addiction that is actually responsible for the tobacco epidemic globally and in India.
You rightly summed up it saying that it's a marketing malady and the advertisement addiction. But another aspect here is what we are seeing in terms of the economic impact. How does it have a cascading effect on the livings of the people when their hard-earned money is spent on managing the cost of healthcare because of the diseases or the disabilities due to tobacco use?
You're absolutely right. One of the claims that the tobacco industry makes in order to defend its existence and to fight any measures for tobacco control is to say that it is a big contributor to the economy and to the employment. It says we create a large number of jobs in farming and in tobacco manufacture, and we earn a lot of revenue which we pay by way of taxes to the government, and we export tobacco and get you foreign exchange earnings. But there have been several studies done over the last 20 years which have repeatedly shown that the total costs of tobacco, just health care, and for three major disorders, that is heart, lung, and cancer-related problems, far exceeds the revenue contributed by tobacco. And we know that tobacco has many other unfortunate consequences for the environment and also in terms of actually creating a lot of social disruption as well because of the impact it has on diverting very fertile land, tobacco-related agriculture, instead of growing nutrient crops. So the claims that it is beneficial for the Indian economy are totally incorrect.
Dr. Reddy, you have been in this field for over 3 decades, and we have seen the health consequences, the economic impact, and now the theme this year. How does tobacco impact the environmental concerns?
Firstly, right from the time tobacco is grown, tobacco is a very, very water-intense crop. It guzzles a huge amount of water. Secondly, it also requires a huge amount of pesticides. That itself is a problem. Then the raw tobacco leaf has to be cured in order to be made into cigarettes or powdered products. That curing requires burning of wood. That means for every 100 cigarettes smoked anywhere, someone somewhere has killed a tree. So you've actually, for 1 hectare of tobacco, you've actually cleared 1 hectare of forest, in a sense, because of the amount of paper consumed in packaging, the wood burnt for curing tobacco. The whole environmental cost of tobacco is huge. Then you also have a problem in terms of environmental tobacco smoke, where non-smokers are also very badly affected by tobacco smoke. And that causes damage to a number of people, including innocent children who are exposed when adults smoke, or women who don't smoke, husbands or other members of the family smoke. Then you have a problem in terms of the amount of fuel burnt in transportation. Tobacco and tobacco products are transported long distances within the country and internationally. All of that consumes a huge amount of fuel, and that itself is adding to the emissions. That is increasing the environmental burden because of accelerated climate change. And apart from that, you have a huge amount of litter that is there. 800,000 metric tons of cigarette butts are thrown around the world every year because of tobacco-related cigarette smoking. And finally, you also have, even from vaping, a lot of batteries being thrown around. And we know that a lot of plastic is also utilized, which is again non-degradable plastic in cigarette manufacture and also in the vape products. So we have a huge problem in terms of environmental pollution and also in terms of water depletion, pesticides, and to top it all, you again have fire hazards from tobacco. A number of forest fires have been reported because of smokers and or carelessly throwing away their butts, and a number of fires have been reported in residences as well as in hotels. So all in all, tobacco becomes a huge environmental hazard, apart from the very fact that it produces smoke, which also is an important environmental pollutant.
So we see tobacco is destroying our forests. It has a huge impact on our soil fertility, and it also has its adverse impact on the water supplies. Not to forget, as you quite rightly mentioned, the second-hand smoke and its impact on the air we have. So all in all, what we see, a huge environmental concern in the form of tobacco, sir?
Absolutely. Tobacco, actually, just like second-hand smoke, hurt people who do not smoke also. The environmental consequences of tobacco, which are also contributing to climate change and global warming, are going to be harming everybody on Earth. So that's a big problem that we need to really take care of.
I was just going through some of the data. It says that a tobacco farmer who plants, cultivates and harvests tobacco may absorb as much nicotine per day as big as in 50 cigarettes. So quite a huge amount.
Yes, there has been also something called the green tobacco disease, in which people who are handling tobacco leaves or rolling tobacco leaves are absorbing a huge amount of nicotine. And that again can be a huge health hazard for people who are involved in the trade. So it is not that tobacco is a big benefactor providing a very safe product to the farmers and to the tobacco factory workers and the people who are rolling the BDs. And the product itself is harmful for those who are handling it.
A lot of noise is being made about what you call the heated tobacco products or the e-cigarettes. In fact, some of the statements made by the cigarette industry and the big industry has been that the e-cigarettes are safe for use. Your take on that?
Well, it's been very clearly shown in a number of studies worldwide that e-cigarettes are not safe. Apart from being extremely addictive because of concentrated nicotine, they have been shown to have effects on the blood vessels. They may reduce the cancer risk slightly because you don't have some of the carcinogens in the vaping product. But in terms of effects on the blood vessels, it's been shown repeatedly that there are major changes in the blood vessels which can result in heart attacks and strokes. In fact, it has been shown that if a pregnant woman vapes, then the placental blood supply decreases to the child and the child is affected. Such is the effect of the constriction of blood vessels that is produced by vaping, because nicotine can constrict the blood vessels even of the placenta. Then it has been shown to affect brain development, and it can actually cause shrinkage of the brain matter, and it has been shown to affect brain cognition as well. And there are many other substances that are there in the vape product which are additive, which have also been shown to be quite harmful. And those substances also, some of them can be carcinogenic. It's not as though the cancer risk is totally reduced. So vape products have now been shown to be very addictive. And it's been shown that young children accidentally swallowing the electronic cigarette cartridge, the nicotine in it, they've died. Nicotine poisoning has been known. And some vapors have also had the electronic cigarette blowing up in their faces. So deaths and severe injuries have been reported because of the explosion of the nicotine delivery device, which is the vaping mechanism. So vaping is harmful to health, is dangerous, and therefore the government of India has been very right in its decision to ban the entry of these electronic products into India, because the moment you allow another toxic tobacco product, particularly with concentrated nicotine, which is highly addictive, then you will be fighting another battle. Even as we are gaining some success in reducing smoking and are gaining some headway in reducing oral tobacco consumption, we don't want a new danger to be imported and start another battle all over again.
Last but not the least, Dr. Reddy, what is your message to listeners on this World No Tobacco Day?
I would say that it's very important for all of us to stay away from tobacco in any form. Smoking, whether active or passive, whether it is vaping, certainly not, and oral tobacco or snuff or any other form of tobacco is dangerous to health. It can cause several diseases. It steals many years of life from people. Anywhere between 6 to 10 years of life is lost to a smoker, and oral tobacco actually causes cancer at an even younger age. It can cause stillbirths. It can cause infertility. It can cause diabetes. It is known to increase the susceptibility to tuberculosis and increase the death rates in people with tuberculosis. So the health hazards of tobacco are so many, and it can affect people who are smoking as well as people who are not smoking. Therefore, we should try and create a tobacco-free society and ensure that nobody will suffer the harm of active or passive exposure to tobacco.
Well, listeners, that was Professor Dr. Srinath Reddy, the President of the Public Health Foundation of India in Gurugram, sharing his valuable insights on the World No Tobacco Day and the message for a tobacco-free society in the years to come. Thanks for joining with us, sir.
Thank you very much. And I hope that in future we will have even more positive news on the level of tobacco control in this country.
Thank you, sir.
This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
Australia's new Labour government has secured a majority in Parliament. The centre-left party, led by Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, defeated Scott Morrison's Conservative coalition in an election on 21st of this month. A record vote for independents and minor parties had made it uncertain whether Mr. Albanese would govern in his own right. The election analysts said now Prime Minister Albanese has the 76 lower house seats needed after victories in tight races. However, in the Senate, where Mr. Albanese's government will need crossbench support to pass laws. The European Union leaders have agreed to embargo most of Russian oil imports into the bloc by year-end. It is a part of new sanctions on Moscow worked out at a summit focused on helping Ukraine. The embargo covers Russian oil brought in by sea. It allows a temporary exemption for imports delivered by pipeline, a move that was crucial to bring landlocked Hungary on board, a decision that required consensus. EU Council President Charles Michel said the agreement covers more than two-thirds of oil imports from Russia.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that service, good governance and welfare of the poor have changed the meaning of government for the people. Addressing Gharib Kalyan Sammelan in Shimla on Tuesday, the Prime Minister said his government has started empowering the poor from day one and working to build a new India. He said the government is trying to give a permanent solution to the problems which were earlier assumed to be permanent. India's President Ramnath Kovind conferred 1 Kirti Chakra and 14 Shaurya Chakras during Defence Investiture Ceremony Phase 2 at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, New Delhi on Tuesday. The gallantry awards were given to the personnel of the Armed Forces, Central Armed Police Forces and the police for displaying conspicuous gallantry, indomitable courage and extreme devotion to duty. The President also conferred 13 Param Vishisht Seva medals and 29 Ati Vishisht Seva medals for distinguished service of exceptional order. Kirti Chakra was awarded to Constable of Jammu and Kashmir Police Altaf Hussain Bhatt posthumously. Mr. Bhatt exhibited gallantry of the highest order, utmost commitment to duty and made supreme sacrifice for the nation while killing a terrorist in Ganderbal.
Indian women's shooting team of 11 Bala Shreya Agarwal and Ramita bagged a gold medal for India in the 10-meter air rifle women's team event at the ISSF World Cup 2022 in Baku on Tuesday. This was India's first medal at the ongoing ISSF World Cup in Baku. The trio from India defeated Denmark 17-5 in the gold medal match. Tokyo Olympian 11 Bala shot above 10 in all the 11 series in the final.
In French Open tennis, American teenager Coco Gauff defeated compatriot Sloane Stephens in straight sets 7-5, 6-2 on Tuesday to book a semi-final spot in women's singles. 18 years old Gauff is ranked 23 in the world. She will clash with Italy's 59th ranked Martina Trevisan for a place in Saturday's final. In men's singles, the first quarter-final match is underway between Alexander Zverev and Carlos Alcaraz. Later, world number 1 and defending champion Novak Djokovic will take on Rafael Nadal in the second quarter-final match in a few hours. This will be the 59th meeting between the two legends of the game, with Djokovic leading head-to-head 30-28. India's Rohan Bopanna and his Dutch partner Matwee Middelkoop will face El Salvador's Marcelo Arivalo and the Netherlands' Jean-Julien Roger in the first ever men's doubles semi-finals on Thursday. The Indian Embassy in Beijing is carrying out many programs in the run-up to the International Day of Yoga 2022. In this series, yoga teacher Mohan Bhandari, who is one of the first Indian yoga teachers in China and runs a renowned yoga school, Yogi Yoga, across China, conducted a session on pranayama or breathing techniques at the Embassy Cultural Center. More from our Beijing correspondent.
As India is celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav on completing 75 years of its independence, Indian Embassy in Beijing is roping in 75 yoga schools across China during International Day of Yoga event to commemorate this. Mohan Bhandari, one of the first Indian yoga teachers in China who runs a renowned yoga school, Yogi Yoga, across China, said it is a good way for Chinese people to learn Indian culture. He said yoga has been adopted by many Chinese families as part of their lives. As this year's theme of International Day of Yoga is Yoga for Humanity, Mohan Bhandari, who learned yoga at Rishikesh, said that yoga helps people from both the countries to understand each other better. He also hailed Indian Embassy's I Do Yoga challenge, which he said inspires others to make yoga part of their lives. Anshuman Mishra for World News, All India Radio, Beijing.
Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. First, we have a look at the press reports on China. Al Jazeera writes that Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and counterparts in 10 Pacific Island nations failed to reach a consensus at talks on a sweeping security and trade deal amid concerns the proposal could threaten regional stability. CNBC writes China faces a nearly $1 trillion funding gap and it will need more debt to fill it. South China Morning Post writes about the cash crisis amid China's stalling economy. Now let's have a look at the press reports on Nepal. Republica writes that economic analysts and the private sector have welcomed the government's move to facilitate domestic production to make the economy self-reliant. Khabar Hub reports that a 5-day Nepali film festival is set to be organized in London in September. Now let's have a look at the press reports on Pakistan. The Express Tribune reports that former Prime Minister Imran Khan on Sunday has asked his supporters to prepare for the next long march towards Islamabad. Now let's have a look at the press reports on Balochistan. Balochistan Post writes that Baloch Liberation Front leader Dr. Alhan Nazar Baloch has said that China and other investors cannot protect their interests without the consent of Baloch people. Balochistan Post also reports that the protest camp of Voice for Baloch Missing Persons against enforced disappearances continued on the 4,657th day in front of the Quetta Press Club. Now let's have a look at the press reports on Afghanistan. News 18 reports that in global exclusive interview, Afghanistan's new Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi said his country will pay special attention to the security of Indian missions and urged New Delhi to resume stalled developmental projects. Now let's have a look at the press reports on Bangladesh. Bangladesh government has launched a drive against illegal hoarders of rice across the country, reports a Dhaka Tribune. The Forest Department of Bangladesh has issued a 3-month ban on fishing and entry of tourists in the Sundarban.
And now let's take a quick look at the headlines once again. India and China review situation along the line of actual control in western sector of border areas, agree for next round of senior commanders meet. Vice President Venkaiah Naidu meets Gabon President Ali Bongo Ondimba in Libreville, says India is committed to be a reliable partner of Gabon in its development journey. World No Tobacco Day is being observed on the 31st of May to raise awareness about damage caused by consuming tobacco. Indian women's shooting team bags gold medal in 10-meter air rifle event at ISSF World Cup 2022 in Baku. And in French Open tennis, American teenager Coco Gauff and Italy's Martina Trevisan enter women's singles semi-final, defending champion Novak Djokovic to take on Rafael Nadal men's singles quarter-final in a few hours. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favourite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Australia. Vaishnav Jan to kehne kai je tere parai jaane re aur tuske upkar kar to ye mariya bhi mangna mere paglo Nindana kare kani re And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.